Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube segment, I'm going to be sharing my thoughts on the tragic death of a 14-year-old young man. He died tragically as a result of falling off a ride in Florida. And some of you may have heard about this. His name is Tyre, if I'm pronouncing it right, Tyre Sampson, and only 14 years old. He was high school football athlete. He was somebody I'm sure had many goals and aspirations, had his whole life ahead of him. Could only imagine, basically seeing your life flash, by, at a very young age, and so much to live for. And I want to offer my condolences and prayers to the close friends and family members of him. And I want to, state that, can you imagine the state of fright and trepidation one would be in that situation? Falling off a ride, I think it was around 430 feet. It was, you know, one of the tallest rides, in the world. And it's something where, the thing about, this is that it goes beyond more than just somebody losing their life. Now, what I'm thinking about, this situation, and somebody, passing away as a result, of plummeting, from a ride. There, thing about this is this ride. I don't know if there's liability with the people at the park, if as far as the workers go, or whoever's in charge of these rights, whoever maintains the safety and checks for the safety, is making sure people are taking their precautions. I believe there was a worker that was talking to these people that were on that ride, and trying to ensure that the seat belts were locked. Now, the thing about it is, it's good, of course, to have workers around and make sure that people are taking their safety precautions and measures, or what have you. But the thing is, what I wonder about is what is done in terms of the maintenance in understanding of this, if these mechanisms or what have you, that they're working, that they're all in working order. How frequently are they actually checked? Are they checked daily? Or are they checked weekly? I hope they're checked daily. And the thing about this situation is that, as a result, people are now probably going to be a little more apprehensive and reluctant to even go to the amusement parks. I understand that you can't stop living, but I saw one post online, as in response to what happened to this young man, that they weren't going to be going on, at least on that ride at that particular park in Orlando, Florida. Now, that's something where you have to remember too. When something like this happens, you don't want to be dominated by fear. It's like, if you hear some shootings, like in a movie theater, it doesn't mean you're going to stop necessarily living and going to movie theaters. But I think what we have to understand is that we have to be, more cautious now, and make sure, whether it's you're taking a ride, or even if you're on a ride at an amusement park, or whether you're, in a car, and you make sure everything's working in order. If you have, like, say, even if you're in a vehicle, do you have if those dual airbags still exist? Make sure that you believe they're in working order, that your seatbelt is functioning properly. If you're riding a bicycle, make sure your helmet is on, and it's when it's safe and secure, it's not on loose. And the one thing that people are going to be doing now more at rides, amusement parks especially, is they're going to be extra prudent and cautious, I'm sure, as a result of this. And again, this is just something that's, very horrifying, to hear something, like this, and whether, if there is, negligence that's involved with people that work at that amusement park, then, then justice will be served, and they're obviously going to be investigating this extensively, and people are going to find out, why this actually took place. And the video footage that they have is graphic. I mean, you could say there's, you could find it online where you could actually see, somebody, falling off the ride as it's, I believe it was descending the ride, but it was, but whatever it was or whatever position the ride was in at the time, you could see somebody plummeting off of it into their death. And it's just, of course, a terrible tragedy. And this is, and again, investigators are still trying to ascertain how this boy wound up dying. I mean, we know he fell from off the ride, but they're going to determine whether it was a faulty seatbelt. Maybe he didn't have it in tight enough, or whether the seatbelt, there was something with the mechanism itself that wasn't working properly. So these are things that are investigators are going to be trying to determine and ascertain as time progresses. And the thing is, I can understand all about death. I had recently, I had found out, I had to find out through an internet search that my mother had passed away, like a month and a half, 2 months after she died or something. I mean, it's terrible to, regardless in whatever manner you find something out, it's still, it still could be very shocking. My mother and I were not really close toward the latter part of her life, and even the second half of my life in general. But it's still startling to find out when somebody prominent in your life passes away. And I'm sure, especially in a manner like this, through an accident that seems like it should have been prevented, to find out in this manner. And that's why, it's so important to try to, do as much as you can and live life to the best you can. Like every day is your last. We can all preach this, but how many of us really do it? I don't think I do. I need to. I'm an older person right now. I'm going to be 52 in a few months, and it's just the time. Sadly, time flies when we're having fun, and even when we're not. And but can you imagine 14 years old? Wow. Whole life ahead of them. It's just, when I hear about things like this, it's a reminder, the subtle blessings we have in life, people, that I am, more than blessed that I made it this far. I mean, you hear people, being involved in accidents, dying from accidents, whether it's something like, like what happened to Tyre Sampson, or whether it's a car accident, whether somebody slips and falls through mountain climbing, whatever it might be, or some bizarre construction accident. It's something where you just understand how precious life really is, and that for those of us that are dealing with trials and tribulations, and we start thinking, well, I wish life wasn't around. It's funny how you change your mind and contradict yourself very quickly when your life is passing in front of you. It was about a couple years ago. I had some kind of, I guess you call it a nightmare, and I dreamt that I was in the hospital, and I was like, I had succumbed to COVID, and I was starting to die, and then I woke up, and then I was really cognizant of not just being cognizant literally, but cognizant of maybe being happy that I was alive and life existed. I was really elated, and it just really, we take it so much for granted sometimes, and just it's just important to realize that we don't know when our last day is, and try to be, do the right thing, people, on a day-to-day basis. The only other thing I could say, I don't have too much more to say about this, and again, my prayers and condolences do go out to the close friends and family members of this young man. This is just a terrible tragedy, and it seems like it's something that could have been averted, but sadly, it wasn't. And the thing is, a lot of times we never think that things like this can happen to us, and then something like this does. I was involved in a couple of fires by my apartment complex during my life, and these things we just never know when something this tragic and horrifying could actually happen, and nobody's impervious to it. It could happen to anybody at any time. And I mean, you hear about people with their arms getting stuck in those those rollers like they make the bread with, and whatever that is, the dough. It's just it's a time when you hear about something like this to just be extra careful, people. And when you're whatever it is you're doing anything that can be potentially perilous or very detrimental to you physically. Make sure you're taking all your precautions that are necessary to minimize the chance of the physical risk. So anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube segment. Until next time, Edwin Learnard saying stay well.